Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fabulous episode of Conversational Witchcraft with me, Dawn, the Kitchen Witch. If you haven't yet, please make sure that you subscribe, you like, you tell your friends about this, share, and follow so that you know what's going on this crazy great podcast, especially when we have amazing, talented people on the show. Like today, we've got Priestess Stephanie Rose Bird. She is a painter and an author of several best-selling books on earth spirituality, hoodoo, and anthropology, including Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones, 365 Days of Hoodoo, Light, Bright, and Damn Near White, and African American Magic. Priestess Bird, who holds a BFA cum laude and MFA as a San Diego Opportunity Fellow, is a devotee of the divinely feminine. She is an elder, an eclectic pagan, magic maker, and keeper of the spiritual wisdom of her indigenous African ancestors. Her work centers around the intersection of earth wisdom and the legacy of Black cultural heritage. I am so excited to have you on the show, Priestess Stephanie Rose Bird. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Right before we hit the record button, I said, your history in witchcraft and the occult is a tapestry of knowledge, and I just can't wait to learn from you. I almost don't even know where to start because you have so much knowledge and so much background. So for those that, so welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you for having me, Dawn. I really appreciate you and love kitchen witchery. And so we are in good company with one another. Thank you.
I think we are. I mean, honestly, like you've got so many recipes and you've got a lot, especially in African American Magic, which is is your newest work. Yes.
Yeah, yes.
It's really like hearth and homey. And I was surprised when I started going through the advanced copy because I was like, this isn't at all what I expected,
Mm,
which was so cool because I think, especially when it comes to kitchen witchcraft, there's
yeah,
so much that binds people no matter where they're from, no matter what their heritage is, you
yeah.
know? So for those of us who may not be familiar with you and your work, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to this path? I mean, I know you grew up in the South, right? You grew up in the
No,
country. You grew up in the
yeah,
country,
right.
right?
Yes. Mhm.
So, I mean, I'm from New York, so everywhere that's country is South to me.
Yeah. Well, it's South Jersey, so too.
South Jersey.
Part of it. Yeah, South. Hmm.
So, was witchcraft and occultism something that was in the home, in the family, or is it something that you came to in your life? Did you find that path on your own?
Well, so there were a little family of witches that took me into their coven, and everyone's sort of dying to know who they are, and I'm never going to say. But they moved to town and had a lovely, very, very old home, like so many in South Jersey. I think I don't want to say it's somewhere between the 1600s and 1700s, their house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they exposed me, but also I had a cousin who told me that he was a warlock and he would introduce me to certain types of like alchemy and, just like really ancient types of books, which was very neat, all like in secret. So I never say his name either. Um,
I love that
and
you don't want to out anybody.
mhm, my uncle outed himself, and he was involved with Santeria
Mhm.
and the sort of Ila Ife path. He was a child of Shango. He told me which of the Orishas I belong to. And so, yeah, I guess you could say that on the one hand, it was a rich background magically, but also, my grandmother, one of them was a spiritualist minister. I had some very religious Christian people in my family. They are the majority of my family. So let's not mistake that. And we also have a contingency of Muslims in the family. Um, so yeah, just like everybody's into every kind of thing
But
in my family.
that's so great because you're exposed to so many different things and
Yeah.
you're able to even, was this obviously you're talking about this as growing up, like in your childhood,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that
Hmm.
a lot of us, those of us that were raised in New York in very Roman Catholic Italian families, it's tunnel vision. It's like, this
Yeah.
is the right way and the only thing you can do. But it
Yes.
sounds like you had the opportunity to learn from so many different kinds of people and so many different kinds of belief systems.
Yes, really. And even in Christianity, I felt the spirit. I would do the holy dance with my mother and things like that in our Methodist church. I don't think our Methodist church was particularly acting, they were acting more Baptist than Methodist. But yeah, she and I would just like get real happy and do the happy dance. So I know the Bible really well, and that has started to filter into some of my later works. But I'm definitely not Christian, but I had been in another life.
Don't you think that that's the way it should be? Like, I can remember going to church as a kid, again, very strict Italian Catholic,
Mhm.
cliche worthy kind of religion, like religious instruction, not so far as to having nuns, but
Yeah,
like you're sitting in church and you're a kid and everything is stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. And you're like, "And like that's how you're singing these songs. But then there are like, you're talking about this Methodist church where everybody's dancing
yeah,
and singing and
and
praising
clapping.
and
Yeah.
clapping, and there's
Mhm.
joy. Like, I
Yes.
don't give a shit what you believe in or what you're praying for, but like having joy and conviction and love for your beliefs and your community, like, isn't that what it's supposed to be?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, that's the religious part. And funny thing, my maiden name is Hunt as well, but it was changed when my family moved from Virginia to New Jersey from Hearst. And I don't know why they changed it. They
Oh,
had their
wow.
own reason. So it took me a little bit of hard work to even find them. I knew all of their names and everything. So once I realized that they were Hearsts and not Hunts, which is what I grew up with, then I was like, okay, this is them.
That's hilarious. I'm actually Hunt is my married name.
Okay.
So people will just see my name on a piece of paper before they see my face. And they'll be like, Dawn Hunt, she's not Italian. And I'm like, look at me.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
look at my this is my Sicilian. I say this is my Sicilian and showing right here. My maiden name is Riza.
Okay.
So I and again, like born and raised in New York. So there's no mistaking that. But isn't that
Mhm.
funny that we have that in common, that last name in common?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
so interesting.
Hmm.
So you talk a little bit about being raised in the country and how did being raised in the country inform your connection to spirit and earth and like seasonality?
Okay. First of all, there are a couple of books that are recent that like really go into it, probably more than I will today.
Yes, North American folk magic is what she's
That's
holding up.
one. And then in here as well.
Oh, The Witch's Companion, Llewellyn's Witch's
Yes.
Companion 2023.
And it talks about like they one of them, the first one I showed talks about being a
Yeah.
solitary hoodoo. And then the second one is Black Magic and Why We Need It. So it's more political in a certain kind of way, but it also definitely goes into my background if you were really interested to hear. I heard one lady wrote into me and she was like, I didn't blink once, girl. So I was like, okay, this must be onto
When she
something.
was reading it.
Yeah, yeah. I love hearing that.
So what would
So
be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to try to answer your question. I wasn't going to just like hold up my books and think that was the answer to the question because it's
Well,
too fast.
thanks. Other people would do that. So thank you.
No. Um, yeah, so You were asking about the country, like the rural connection to
Yeah, like how did
magic?
being that close to nature
Mm,
inform or impress upon you to affect your early spiritual practices? And are there threads of that coming through to your more contemporary practices? Like, I think that environment and how we grow up really informs, where we become in our spiritual paths, you know.
absolutely.
So I'm
Yeah.
interested to know how that affected you because you are so accomplished and you have so many different types of practices going on, you
Mm.
know, they all come from you and your experiences and what you gravitated towards. So I'm interested in the origin of that.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that question because the origin story is definitely connected to my rural background. And I wasn't always, at first, we lived in East Orange, New Jersey. And
Not
then,
rural. Not
yeah, no, not at all. And then my father just like moved us. He got a job in Wilmington, Delaware.
Mm,
And 'cause that's really close to where I grew up, and we just moved to the country right on the lake. The lake was our front yard. So, I mean, it was like really right there. And there is no way that you could ignore nature. First of all, I didn't have neighbors. I didn't have really people to play with besides my brothers, who weren't always so willing. They were more interested in each other than with me.
right.
Nature became like a friend, a confidant. I went into the trees to sit and do my homework or cry or seek solace.
Mm.
The when the lake was frozen, it gave off the most eerie, like, screeches, and I don't know how to I know people that have heard frozen lakes know exactly what I'm talking about, but, just very eerie as though it was speaking. And then in the
Wow.
summer, I'm an avid swimmer, and so it was natural because, well, my father had learned to swim in the Girls and Boys Club, in the North Jersey, but he showed me how to swim in the lake, and, just feeling the springs, seeing the tadpoles, like, have them touch my body, it was all just so, like, organic. Everything was organic. We were very earthy. Every summer, I would take off my shoes for the summer and toughen my feet. It was just a process. It just took a day to toughen them up. And so now that's called earthing. It's called something.
Yes.
But for me, it was just like summertime, time to take off the shoes and feel the earth beneath me. So yeah, there are different little biomes near us too. Like we have like a sandy territory in the back and woods to the other side, woods on the other side of the lake, and then all of the water. So it was just really like natural. At that time, I was more of a poet. Literally, I would write poetry and I did dance.
Hmm.
And so I would practice my pirouettes to the trees, like I spotted off of the trees.
Wow.
So for me, everything was about nature, and I didn't really know another way because, as I said, we moved in when I was in second grade, and um, I didn't really pick up too much from kindergarten till to first, that is memorable to me. So that those were my formative years as being right there on Paradise Lake, it's called.
Sounds
My
like
dad,
paradise. Sounds
yeah,
like paradise. And you were so fully immersed
yeah,
in nature. And I think that is something that children of that age don't always get, especially today. It's all TVs and computers and screens and phones and all of that. So to be so connected and so rooted to earth and the cycles of life,
mhm,
to go, you're sitting here and I can see that you're having these
Yeah,
visceral
I
memories
went
of,
somewhere else. Yeah.
right, like
Mhm.
visceral, like I can tell that you're smelling the earth and you're hearing that lake and you're feeling those tadpoles. That
Yeah.
cycle of earth is so important. And to be able to recognize that, appreciate it, and enjoy it as a second grader or third grader, like that's amazing.
Mhm.
That's amazing. So then how does that inform, or how did that uh, dovetail into you finding this path of spirituality, witchcraft, hoodoo, all the things that you practice?
Yeah, I mean, when I find them as I go along, because maybe as I grow older, I will even find further paths that are of interest to me. Um, I'm like, oh, it's right there.
Right.
The directionality of witchcraft, all of the different tools, from the brooms to the herbs and plants and bark and berries. This is all nature. This is all I think, like, one of the things that grabbed my attention so pretty early, since we're talking that way, about fourth grade, was the Shakespearean play Macbeth, and just reading, I would read the Three Witches part with just so much conviction. It was like I was with them. I was absolutely with them. So there was that.
Wow.
And then, I started to hunger, as I grew older, for where's the African presence here?
Mm,
What would the African Americans be doing with this? And I would see not little, no, I would see bits and pieces here and there. But when I found hoodoo, which was much later in my life, I was like, oh, okay, so this is African American predominantly, and it's natural. Like,
mm.
I didn't feel um, too much of a discussion of the earthy herbal parts of hoodoo. So that's what I did here with one of my
S-
better known books.
Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones.
Yeah.
Such a cool book. Such a cool book.
Yeah, so yeah, it just filtered in quite naturally. It just all went together unquestionably for me. The stones and the roots and the bones of the earth, all of that. So
So where in that timeline did you find hoodoo? And did
mhm.
it feel like an awakening moment? Did it feel like a slow and steady process of finding this path? Or was it like a light bulb moment? Like for me, when I discovered I was a kitchen witch, it was a light bulb moment because I didn't know there was a name for all the things that I have been doing for all the
Yeah.
years I have been doing it. And
Mhm.
so I opened up a book and I went, oh crap, this is me. I didn't know there was a
Yeah.
name for this.
Mhm.
And so it was, and then from that point is sort of like when I started really digging into this particular type of craft. Um, was it that kind of thing for you with hoodoo, or had you been
Yeah,
studying
I mean,
other witchcraft first?
so yeah, I'd been studying witchcraft and practicing for decades before I found hoodoo. And in
Wow.
between there, when I was a teenager, is when my uncle, the Santeria priest,
Yeah.
started to speak of the Yoruba way, um, the Ila Ife, the Santeria, the different Orishas. So I learned that before the hoodoo came along into my life, which was really in my late 30s, my very late 30s. So that's why, like, in Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones, there's a lot of witchcraft. There is a lot of the Yoruba way, the Ila Ife. So, because people were like, wait, hold on, this isn't hoodoo. And I'm like, well, this is how I conceive it and how I can share it in a way that will help you. So, this is, it is what it is.
But it's your
So
practice. It's how you
yeah,
interpret it, and it's how you practice it based on your background and your desires and what resonates with you.
yeah,
Has there
exactly.
is there controversy for you in this isn't hoodoo-y enough, or this is too hoodoo-y,
Um,
or like do you ever get any of that kind of backlash?
I mean, like when Six Stones, Roots and Bones first came out, I had a pretty ugly and major detractor who would speak very vocally against
Mm.
my work. And then I found out that she was, I don't want to throw any of my famous friends under the bus,
No,
but
no, no.
let's say
And we can
other
always we can always
famous,
cut out their names. So
yeah, but other famous authors would say, "Oh, she's on your back, she's on my back too." So there was, and she had like quite a big following. She probably still does. I don't really care if she's living or dead. Because a witch can be a bitch, and that always surprises people about me, but I can be real cut and dry. So,
you're still a human
I,
being.
yeah, I mean, I wear a T-shirt that says "spiritual gangsta."
Yeah.
I'm not playing around.
Yeah,
So yeah,
no.
so there was some controversy with different people very early in the work because the work came out in the early 2000s,
Mm,
before there was really very much writing in that kind of way from an African American author. So yeah, that I think that had something to do with like this 365 days of hoodoo,
mhm.
which is more um it's very like prescribed in terms of sticking to the original hoodoo's voices and then branching out from there. I'm an artist. I'm a visual artist, like you said, right from the beginning.
Mm,
And so I can't like stick into some kind of little tight box. I have
mm.
to be artistic. And in fact, I think it's wrong to copy other people's work. That's something that really bothers me.
Right, right.
So, yeah, I will see these different potions and rituals and rites, but I have to bring my voice into it and invite the reader also to bring their belief or their practice or however they want to do it into it.
Right. I mean, I think that's one of the beauties of being a witch, and I'm using witch as a blanket term. If you are in the witchcraft world or you're a practicing pagan, using any of these kind of blanket terms, what for me, one of the things that's so attractive about this path is that it's so individual, right?
Yes.
You
Mhm.
can say my practice looks like this and this, and maybe I am, you know, you know, maybe I am, and not in terms of like trying to be appropriative, but like on my altar, I have Ganesha because I work personally with Ganesha. I'm
I
not going to
like
sit here and
it
go, I'm an
too.
expert on Ganesha, or I own him,
Right.
or I'm going to teach you about him. I might teach you about I might talk about my experience with this God,
Yeah,
but I'm not
exactly.
going to say this is mine or try to take up space where someone who maybe is an expert of that culture is. But
Mhm.
what is so beautiful about personal practice of being a witch is being able to pick and choose what we want to use, how we use it, and the way we can express our own personal individual spirituality through these different pantheons and ideals and spellcraft and that sort of thing. um,
So well said. Yeah.
it's important,
Mhm.
and then but every listen, people are always going to have an opinion.
Yeah. Mhm.
People are always going to have an opinion, and that's fine, but
They're
you're
very
not over
traditional.
here saying do it this way. You're saying this is how I do it.
Yeah.
This is what works for me, and if that
Mhm.
works for you, great, and if it doesn't,
Yeah.
that's fine too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I've been a solitary. I come out now and again, but I find it taxing to
Mm,
deal with a lot of energy. But I am like at the end of this month, I found this beautiful conference that I go to, Sacred Waters Retreat, that's
Mhm.
only open to Black and Brown women. Uh,
Beautiful.
I would say Black and women of color. So I go there. Usually we're open to as many as 100 women.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to Mystic South. So I sort of handpick, that's in Atlanta,
Mhm.
handpick these different events and appearances to go to. I will be at the Scottish Goddess Conference and, doing lots of podcasts like this one today.
I think honestly, like doing podcasts for me is one of the things that like was a real blessing from the pandemic because I never would have done this. Uh,
No,
and to be able to reach people and meet people and have these great conversations, I wouldn't have done it without having to do Zoom all the time. So I want to get back to what you talked about your one of your earlier works. It was the compendium, and you said this really explores Black magic and why it's so important. I'd like to talk about that because it is important.
mhm,
So I want to know, where did this come from for you? Why is it important for you? And why is it important for the witchcraft community at large?
yes. Great question. People say that and sometimes it's bullshit, but that is a great question. Okay.
It is not nothing that comes out of my mouth is bullshit.
Yeah. And it's so full, so I'll have to try to stay on point because my mind does wander and I've got all these things I'm looking at. I'm
I'll
facing at the window. I
I'll
have
bring
my
you I'll
books.
bring you back. I'll
I know
bring you
you
back.
do. I know you do. Um, okay, so with the being African American, it's hugely important to us. Like when we see each other, like I was at the gym this morning, every Black person I saw, they get the nod, a hi, a wave. We are connected to one another. That's why we call each other sister and brother. So when you have that really strong cultural base and you're visiting different, practices, reading, witchcraft or um, all of the different, the green magic, the different elements of witchcraft, even with shamanism, you're like, with shamanism, it was easy for me. And a lot of people say, shamanism, that's a white thing. And I'm like, get the hell out of here.
It's not it's
But
not a it not it's an Asian thing. It's it's an Asian thing. It's not a white thing at all.
It's Asian and it's South American, Central American, African. They're
Native.
um
It's
Af-
definitely not European. Let's just
indigenous. Yeah, a lot
just
of
put
indigenous people. But the way I learned to practice it was through my African readings. Anyway, okay. So um when I'm reading about witchcraft, though, and studying up, because I am a scholarly type of a person, I just look behind me. It's just like books, 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 books.
yes,
No,
yes.
that's just the intro. Then there's more over there and more in the other room. Um, but I'm like, where are we? Like, where I'm not feeling this in my culture. I'm not, and I know that we have had great herbalists, and I know about the midwifery and
Mhm.
the healing ways. I know about them, so why isn't it being written about? And I think that was a driver for me to begin, to write Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones. And then after it, Four Seasons of Mojo came. Shortly after it, a couple of years, and that book is the reboot of it is African American Magic that is
Which is
coming
the
out
newest
June
work.
1st. So yeah, it's just like we want our voices heard. People write to me and they're like, "Oh my God, thank God." And you sound like my auntie. You sound like my grandmother. I saw this stuff practiced by my mother, but there was no name for it. Thank
Right.
you. And then people who are not of African descent are also appreciative of the open way that I presented open-hearted, because I'm not like
Right.
giving away all the goodies here in this work. It's what is presentable and what we can give, but it's not like the whole kit and caboodle. Like that's why we do like closed practices at places like Sacred Waters Retreat in
Hmm.
Tennessee.
Hmm.
So so yeah, it's just like it's beautiful because I mean, black and white people have been living close together in these United States for centuries, and we it's not been pretty. But there's also there is a contingency in both black and white people that are like, hey, what's going on over there? What's
Hmm.
going on over there? You know, we want to know about each other, and you feel things. You feel things even on a genetic level because there is the mixing that has been done, which is what I'm coming out with next year. Spirits in My Bones is about all of the different kinds of spirits that we have in us because of our DNA
Mm.
mixtures.
Hmm.
So, um, so yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Well, I think you made so many good points, and saying that you went to the gym this morning, and every person you had a nod between yourselves and the other Black people that were there, or people of color that were in the gym, and you were able to kind of give that nod. And I'm thinking as you're saying that and going, geez, if I ever go into a space like I don't get a nod. We're all just a bunch of cranky old white ladies. Do you know what I mean? Like, and, and often we don't realize that there's bonds between us,
Mhm.
and there really is. I think that's one of the reasons why it's so great to go to like a witch convention, or like I'm a big nerd. And so if I go to like a nerd, something that would be nerdy, like a Comic-Con or I go to a lot of fairy festivals. Like we're all weirdos. So then
Yeah.
we know that we're all weirdos because we're all in the
Mhm.
same place, but we don't have an identifier to look
Yeah.
at each other and see, oh, look, we are the same. We are sisters and brothers. We don't
Mhm.
have that. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you writing about your heritage in terms of witchcraft and magic and hoodoo is so important, because it calls out and says, hey, look, here I am, and we
Mhm.
are the same.
Yeah.
And I have to say that, I cannot even begin to understand the experience of a person of color in this country, because I'm not. But I appreciate it and understand that it's different, and I'm always trying
Yes.
to learn. But I would not pick up a book that said African American Magic, because I would say, this is inappropriate for me to
Mhm.
take this.
Yeah.
Is it so tell us, who is this book for? As you said, it's open, right?
Mhm.
The way you write is open. So
Well,
anybody
yeah.
can pick up this book and learn, right?
I feel that way with my work, particularly my early works, and now I'm going to try to do books that can be inclusive, that it's allowable for it to be inclusive, because we've closed a lot of our practices because there's so much like appropriation and just like yeah, abuse. So
Absolutely.
we have to heal ourselves,
Yes.
and in that process, so then some of the particular rituals and that will be quieter than they were in my initial work. Initially, I was just like, hear us, see us, feel us. And, with African American Magic, I think like with all of my subtitles, because the subtitles are usually very long, like even Six Stones, Roots and Bones, Hoodoo, Mojo, and Conjuring with Herbs. So there should be something in there that someone wants, like, I want to
Right.
know about conjuring. I want to know more
Right.
about herbs and hoodoo. And that is the same with African American Magic book. There are so many like there's recipes in there that like
Yes.
are useful to anyone and
Yes. Yeah,
recipes.
and that's what you're saying, right? Like, even though I wouldn't initially go and say, "Oh, this book is for me," because I might feel like, "Oh, I don't want to appropriate and I don't want to put my toe where it's not welcome.
Yes.
This is about me learning about your practice and saying, is there anything I could do in my own home at my own altar that is similar, or
Yes.
where I could learn and incorporate that into my practice? It's not appropriative if I'm not trying to take up space in that
Exactly.
avenue,
Exactly.
right?
No, it's like something like, think about yoga. It's like,
Which I love.
I'm not going to stop doing yoga because I don't come from the original peoples who established it. I love it. I honor it. I appreciate it. And
Mhm.
sometimes that filters in my books too. And people are like, editors, hey, wait a minute, you can't write about that. And I'm like, why? This is a part of my daily life. I need to write about it. So
Yes.
um, I have to back it up in so many different kinds of ways. Our world is so complex, and so touchy. But there were people of every shade in my family, from literally people who passed for white and we would have to go to the back door to see them, to being all the way very, very deeply brown. And that would be one of my grandmothers. Actually, I have one of each. I have the passing one, and the one who's deeply brown. And so I see multiplicity everywhere, and I appreciate all of the different kinds of peoples, except for hateful people.
Hateful people. I don't care what
I
color
have
your
no
skin is
time.
or what you believe in or who you're sleeping with. If you are
Yeah,
hateful, you got to go,
get
right?
out.
Like that's
Yeah,
that's that's really what it boils down to.
yeah.
So we need to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get more in depth with your new work, the African American Magic, because I want to talk about some of the fun stuff that is in that book. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Priestess Stephanie Rose Bird. Welcome back to Conversational Witchcraft. We are really having a great conversation with Priestess Stephanie Rose Bird. So, talk to us about your newest book, African American Magic, because this is very different from other books that you've written, right? You look at
Yes,
this as more of a grimoire. Is that
yes,
correct?
yes. So African American Magic, and I really like, so the book prior to it was also a reboot, and I can never remember the damn name of the book. So I'm like, if I can't remember the name, other people aren't going to. So let's pare it down really simple.
Right.
What is the simple essence of this book? But so with African American Magic, I was looking at the four seasons and seasonal seasons in temperate zones, and also seasons of life, like,
Mm.
maiden, motherhood, crone, and all in between, because it's for men and women too. It's not, those are just archetypes. But yeah, so it explores seasonality in life. And so with that, when I think of the four seasons, I'm thinking of certain vegetables like pumpkins and winter squash and
Mhm.
things like that. Or I think about chicken noodle soup. Even though I'm a vegetarian, I have to boil those bones sometimes. My children aren't all vegetarian, so I would make it for them growing up. Yeah, so it's a lot of cookery, kitchen witchery.
That's
Um,
what I love.
yeah, and then it has like green magic in it. The green magic is really the predominant like tone, but it is overlaid with my African heritage. So um
So,
what example would be,
for example, are you getting into like we were talking about the kitchen witchcraft, right? So for me, my kitchen witchcraft is based in, of course, my heritage of being an Italian American. And so,
yeah.
the holy trinity is,
Mhm.
garlic, onions, basil, right? Like
Yeah.
garlic, onions, tomatoes, like everything starts with that. Do you work a lot with traditionally African spices and flavors and recipes, and how they work seasonally.
Yes, absolutely. With African American, though, especially at the time when this was written, I wasn't doing purely African from the different regions in Africa. Oh, that would really overlay it with a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's African American cookery and also things that we do around the home, like the floor washes, the pine floor wash, which like finds its way in every one of my books because I feel that pine is so deeply connected to African Americans, and it's like been subverted, but I want to like bring it out and make sure that people enjoy it and familiarize themselves with it once more.
I'm not at all familiar with that as a tradition. You
Yeah,
know,
so it's like, yeah, we always like pine products, sap, tar, oils in our homes and in our bathing ritual with our hair. That we think of it as the most curative thing is to use pine tar for dandruff and things like that.
wow.
So
And where do those traditions come from?
I believe that they came obviously from Africa, but also like when you're in America, then you regroup like, okay, what can I use that's here right
Yeah.
now for myself? And I think down south, those trees are prevalent, and
Yeah.
so they became used, but it represents life and death because on the top
Wow.
is sort of everlasting life, um, and then there's shedding of the
The needles.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So the
The
needles
needles and the
shed and all the
acorns.
dead needles are
Yeah.
below the tree.
Cones. That I was trying to think of those
Pine cones,
cones.
right? So
Yes, yes.
you have this beauty. I've never, I mean, obviously it makes sense, but I
Mm,
didn't realize that was something that was prevalent in
it
African
is.
American culture. Like it makes
Yes.
sense, but
Mhm.
wow, right? Because like you said, it's evergreen, so it's full of life, but what falls,
Represents the death.
the
The death
death and
part.
then the
It's a
rebirth, right?
cycle. It's a cycle that we kind of
Wow.
bring out in the African American Magic book. So,
That is
um,
a really cool thing
thank you.
to learn, and go, wow, I did
Well,
not realize at all that that was so prevalent.
yeah.
Wow.
And
Cool.
even like now so with sticks, stones, roots and bones and African American magic, I talk about tree whispering, and that has become something scientifically um proven that trees talk,
Mhm.
but the in the on the plantations and such, African Americans knew that and were partaking in the conversations with the trees. So I've found some anthropological proof of that from Ruth Bass, who collected it, and that's in Sticks, Stones, Roots, and Bones. So, yeah, I just
Wow.
like sometimes I have to thread, and it's like because and that's where the artist comes in, that's where the painter's eye comes in. Like I see something and then I see something else. My grandfather just, not to beat the pine till it's dead. But my grandfather also thought that turpentine, which comes from pine, from conifers, was curative. And he is not absolutely alone. Like that is a African American thing, that, oh, put some turpentine on that, that's old. That's old, old,
Wow.
old school. But yeah, so I saw this collection of different kinds of medicinal products that were pine and conifer based, and I'm like, oh, let's work this. this magic.
So cool. So these are the kinds of little nuggets that we're going to find
Yes.
in African American magic. And what really intrigues me is the recipe portion, right?
Yeah.
To be able to like go, okay, well, I'm a kitchen witch, and here's kitchen witchery from another culture, things,
Mhm.
flavors, recipes, uh, um, ideas of food magic that in my Eurocentric view of food and magic, I haven't had the opportunity to explore. So
Yeah.
that's really, really exciting, Um, and I love that food is one of those things that is universal for people. We all need food to survive. So when we
Yes.
think about kitchen witchery and culinary types of magics, it's a really wonderful way to be able to kind of like say, okay, well, this is from my heritage. And I
Hmm.
made this magically for you based on my ancestral heritage. And then this is from your heritage. And you
Hmm.
made it ancestrally magically for me. And we
Yeah.
can share those things and come together and realize we all do this cooking with love, cooking with purpose,
Mm.
regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of our skin, regardless of where we come from or who we
Yes.
love or anything like that, right?
Mhm.
It's so connective. Food is so
Yeah,
connective.
it
And I
really
love
is.
that you and it's very healing. So
Mhm.
you know, in your own practices, how much of your own practice is centered in the kitchen around these types of foods?
So in the book, I try to let me just have a quick look at some of the recipes because I do my recipes in a lot of the books. So oh, I have even like um little tips for cooking and preparations for our dog and cat friends. I
I
love
love that
animals.
so much.
Yeah, and there is apple cider vinegar tonics,
Mm.
rainbow bean stew, which the bean stew is a really important survival food, chicken roast, and that particular chapter is soul and spirit food. So
Mm.
I think of it like roundabout, not just like soul food. Yeah, but soul and spirit food. We just look at um a cross between more things from the diaspora, like there's soursop ice cream, ginger beer, which are
Mm.
more of the Caribbean, um, Bahama Mama, sofrito, which is Puerto Rican. So there's like a real rounded view of the food. So I think a little bit earlier it was like African American, but it is of the diaspora, which is welcoming for um, other Black people from different cultures. Are We're not homogenous people at all,
Yeah.
and so this sort of writing and recipes engages all different kinds of interests, engages my interest because I love Caribbean food and I'm so intrigued by it, but it's not something that I particularly grew up with. So
Hmm.
now
Hmm.
I have a Puerto Rican son-in-law, so he is introducing some different dishes to the family. But yeah,
I
so
love
yeah,
sofritas.
yes,
I had made that. We did like I like to experiment with different foods, and I think food is a really wonderful way to get to know a people and a culture. I feel like look at if you can look at what people are eating in their on their land and their homes, you get really a sense of a people and a culture. And
yes.
I don't remember what the impetus was, but I was like, I want to cook Puerto Rican food. And I did a bunch of research online and I found like what looked like the most authentic recipes. And I
Yeah.
made sofritas and I made peas and rice and I made
Mm.
um empanada and it was oh, it was one of the best meals I ever made. And
Yeah.
there's so many interesting, again, growing up as an Italian American, you
Mm.
know, but even within Italy,
With beautiful, wonderful food
beautiful. I mean,
that
listen,
we're all always trying to cook some, you know, in our own different ways.
Italians know their shit when it comes to
Yeah.
food.
Oh, yeah.
But even within Italy, there are
Mhm.
so many because the regions are so different. The regions are so vast. So you have
Yes.
some regions where there's no pasta. It's all meat and potatoes and cheese. And then you have other regions where it's all fish, you know?
Yes.
So similarly, in terms of African American food, or in your book where you're like, we're pulling from all these different regions.
Yes.
I mean, first of all, Africa is ginormous.
Yes.
Right. I mean, so the
Yeah.
food in this part versus that part is going to be completely different,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's such a
Yeah.
great way to get to learn a people and learn a culture and
Really is.
experiment and expand your mind and how you're an artist, right? So like for me,
Mhm.
cooking is art,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you can add a little of this spice to this thing and be like, it's a whole new dish,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
use the whole palette, which is so much fun.
Mhm.
Um,
Absolutely.
Priestess Stephanie Rose Bird, you are just delightful, and you've opened and expanded my mind. And I'm sure that you've opened and expanded the minds of our listeners and anyone who has read any of your books. Where can we find you online? How can we follow you, and where can we buy your books?
Okay, so I'm on Amazon with my books. All of the books are on Amazon.com. They're also on Llewellyn.com, some of them, and redwheelwiser.com. I have a website, www.stephanieRoseBird.com, and that has links to all of my different social media and so forth. I will just say that I'm loving Instagram these days. So on there, I am at s.r.bird. That's it. And you can follow me there. And I have little these days I'm into quotes, so I'm dropping quotes
I love it. I
there.
love it.
So,
So we'll also have all of your information in the show notes so people can click and find you and follow you and buy your wonderful, wonderful books and learn from your wealth of knowledge and experience. It's really, really cool to have you here on the show. And now I'm going to ask you my one last question, which I ask everyone that comes on the show.
okay.
Um, if you could have me as a kitchen witch cook you one magical meal, what would it be and why?
Hmm. That is a difficult question.
Especially if you're a good cook, which you are. So,
What I've been dying to have lately, and I have not been able to have, and I feel like just yesterday I was watching a chef who traveled into Valencia, Spain, and
oh,
he had paella made. He watched it being made, so that would be my wish from you because it has so much opportunity for blessings and magic and workings within the cooking. And, you know, rice is very important to my people.
mm.
And yeah, but the
And
seafood version, because
seafood
I only eat seafood.
And seafood is of Aphrodite. So
Yes, yeah.
seafood is all love and beauty and connectivity and joy and all of those things. And rice is all prosperity. So we're
Mhm.
going to throw that all together, make it spicy, and just sit on a table and just stuff our faces full of paella. I'm down with
Yes.
that. That sounds amazing. I would make
Mhm.
that for you for sure.
Oh, that would be beautiful. And the seafood is also Yemaya o Lagoon. That's how we see the Orisha of the sea. So it's
Yes.
a pair, male and female duality. A lot of people just focus on Yemaya right now, but I like to entertain the duality
I
of
love
the
that.
sea.
I
Mhm.
love that.
The upper and lower sea. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. This was so wonderful. I appreciate you so much. And
Me
until next
too.
time, everyone, I wish you many, many blessings and so much gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you.